The left is currently obsessed with Milo Yiannopolous for some reason, which we'll expand on as we continue. So you can see here there is an Indie 100 article that came out recently, just yesterday in fact, called "Remember Milo Yiannopolous? Deplatformed ExGay reduced to flogging Catholic iconography on YouTube." And I think there's something very interesting that we can learn from this recent saga of news on Milo. So let's get into it so that we can find out what that is we can learn. So this is, as you would imagine, from a reputable organisation like Indie 100, a very unbiased...
a reputable source.
Refresher, exactly. It's an unbiased refresher on who Milo is. So it starts off here: cast your mind back to 2016, and you might recall the name Milo Yiannopolous, although we could forgive you for completely blocking it out altogether. So that's some excellent journalism.
I think we call that poisoning the well in the trade.
Absolutely, yes. The British commentator and journalist became synonymous with the alt-right movement in the United States, which helped to elect Donald Trump to the White House. No, I think that was Donald Trump managed to get himself elected, and also Hillary Clinton. His unapologetic far-right views should have seen him maligned by the political and cultural landscape, but his fame and stock kept rising, even after he was banned from Twitter for instigating an onslaught of abuse against actor Leslie Jones. For anybody unfamiliar with this, I'm pretty sure that Leslie Jones was the black woman who was acting in the 2016 all-female Ghostbusters reboot, which anybody with a functioning funny bone should know was absolutely terrible. I've not watched it. I've seen clips from it. I saw the trailer. That's all I needed to see. But he did not instigate an onslaught of abuse about her. From what I'm aware, he called her out on Twitter for having been playing the victim in the face of controversy, at which point she turned around and then played the victim at the first sign of criticism.
Yes, the left in Twitter does seem to have a very elastic definition of the word abuse, doesn't it?
Absolutely, they do. But that was enough to get him banned from Twitter. They continue. However, Yiannopoulos' influence plummeted when video clips of him advocating paedophilia emerged online in 2017. Yiannopoulos, who was openly gay, claimed that the clips had been badly edited and that he had been a victim of child abuse. Now, to clear some things up here, I am not too familiar on this situation. From what I am aware, Yiannopoulos on a few podcasts had made some references to the fact that he had been in a relationship as a child or a young teenager, like 12, 13, 14 years old, with a Catholic priest, because he was Catholic at the time, he is Catholic again now, and made some references to it being consensual on his part. Now, from what I can tell and what he said afterwards, this either appears to have been some kind of incredibly edgy joke as a way of dealing with what was obviously going to be a very horrible and traumatic sort of experience for him, or just a means of coping for it and trying to justify it in his own head. I don't believe that those comments were ever supposed to be taken as some kind of justification for what happened to him or what happened to other victims of the Catholic priests and bishops.
Yes, I don't think you need much charity to explain those comments as something other than paedophile advocacy.
Exactly. And also, let's be perfectly honest here, I'm not going to side with the mainstream view of things when they are very, very happy to selectively clip videos and comments made by people to paint a very particular picture of them, whilst at the same time for years covering up other serial abusers in elite establishment positions. I could name names, but we all know who.
Names like Jimmy Savile, perhaps.
Yes, exactly. Right, Jimmy Savile and others. You all know who we're talking about. So let's continue here. This backlash to this controversy resulted in the 37-year-old being forced out of his position at the conservative news outlet Breitbart, losing the opportunity to talk at CPAC, and the publisher Simon & Schuster cancelling his planned autobiography. Yiannopoulos was also banned from Facebook in 2019. So for all intents and purposes, this article just seems to be some kind of sick victory lap that the left is taking, like trying to trample all over Yiannopoulos. They got him completely deplatformed from basically anywhere that he was a public figure, or at least able to speak to a wider audience as a public figure. And for all intents and purposes, it seems that what they wanted to get him deplatformed, they won. So this all seems a little bit mean-spirited, as far as I can tell, but, you know, the left can't help themselves from going up to a well long after it's dried up. But recently, he has come back into the news. If we move along to expand on the story, we've got this website called Wonket, which I'd never heard of before today. With a name like that, they're quite unique in their reporting style. You can see here, Milo Yiannopolous selling Virgin Marys on far-right Catholic home shopping network knockoff. Now, from what I'm aware in regards to this, Milo came out earlier on this year in like March or something that he had either become Catholic again or reverted back to Catholicism and had now come out as straight. He was now an ex-gay or something like that, and his husband had been relegated to a housemate. You know, all sounds quite amusing, to be perfectly honest. Very interesting development, but fair play. It's his life. He can do what he wants, and this article talks about it. So Milo Yiannopolous, once the brightest star in the alt-right sky, once again there's that buzzword, that spooky word, alt-right, has had trouble finding his place in the world after getting booted from basically every Trumpist platform on earth, after suggesting that being molested by a priest was not all that bad. Once again, trying to mischaracterize any comments, and also trying to characterize what Twitter and Facebook as Trumpist platforms.
Well, they were also missing out a very important detail in that phrasing, which was that he was referring to specific instances, I believe, and the person being molested by a priest was him.
Yes, exactly. He's not trying to carry water for the adults in these situations. No. He seems to have been trying to justify and cope with his own position within that dynamic, you could describe it as, which obviously was abusive. I mean, any relationship between a child, because that's what a young teenager is, they are a child, and a grown adult is abusive in that sense.
Yes.
So they continue. Naturally, he's turned to the only institution on earth with absolutely no business criticizing anyone else for defending child molesting priests, the Catholic Church. Okay, so now he's found religion. I mean, fair play. He was yeeted from every platform that had him on it, and it seems as though his livelihood was destroyed to a certain extent. So honestly, I don't really blame him for finding religion in what was obviously quite a difficult period in his life. To go along with his renewed faith, Yiannopolous moved back into the closet, declared himself a heterosexual, and grew out a mullet just to prove how aggressively heterosexual he plans on being. So once again, just to clarify my own thoughts on this, I very much doubt that Milo Yiannopolous has managed to eliminate any sort of gay feelings or temptations within his own life. This does seem just sort of like probably a prerequisite of him converting back to Catholicism, and possibly just another example of him trying to cope with certain elements of his own life. No judgment there, just what I'm seeing it as. But it does kind of interest me because it refers to something that I've read recently in Douglas Murray's The Madness of Crowds, which I imagine you've read as well. In the chapter that is about gays in The Madness of Crowds, he talks about how within the current societal paradigm that we have, coming out of the closet for a gay man is considered to be reaching the truth, having hit the final station in your journey. You finally reached your destination. Whereas going the other way, going from being gay to going, well, actually, I'm straight now, or any other variation on that, is considered as a form of lying to yourself. And this is very much a demonstration of that. Even if it's something where I look at Milo and you can see all the images of him, you can see the way he talks and holds himself. He does seem still to be very, very camp, pretty gay, to be perfectly honest. But, if he wants to declare himself to be heterosexual and live his life in that way, that's absolutely his
prerogative.
Right. Yeah,
it's his life.
That's his right to do so. And they continue. It looks like Milo has moved on to sharing Virgin Mary bric-a-brac on Church Militant's knockoff version of QVC, where he is selling statues of the Virgin Mary for your home shrine. Church Militant, for the unfamiliar, is a very far-right Catholic news site run by Michael Voris, a Steve Bannon wannabe who does not care for the Catholics and thinks social welfare programs are a system in which half the people of America pay no taxes and get things handed to them. I mean,
is he wrong?
I was going to say that sounds pretty base, to be perfectly honest. I don't see the contradiction there, and I don't see what's wrong about that. But also, if you dislike everything that he's doing so much, why are you publishing these articles about him? You already got him deplatformed off of most social media networks, and now the second he appears in even a relatively small element of the public eye, something that's quite innocuous and off to the side, Catholic statues, selling them online, they still feel the need to bring him up and go, look at what he's doing. Oh, isn't it so evil? Seems like a very uncharitable way to go about things, and it seems like just another example of them trying to bully him off another platform, as far as I can tell. And if you move along, Pink News, of course, also have an article on it. Desperate ex-gay Milo Yiannopolous flogs Virgin Mary statues on a Christian shopping channel. I mean, why is this headline news? Why is this something that you have to have an article on? Well, I think
the bar for headlines in Pink News is set pretty low at this point.
Yeah, that's true. But they basically just go over the same sort of information. They all sort of toe the same line that you can see here. Self-described ex-gay, blah, blah, in a video for Catholic news site's Church Militant shopping channel. Yiannopolous has been seen describing a Virgin Mary statue up for sale. In 2019, he claimed that he couldn't put food on the table after being deplatformed by the social networks. I spent years growing and developing and investing in my fan base, and they just took it away in a flash, he told his followers on Telegram. This 19k BS here is not going to cut it. I can't make a career out of a handful of people like that. I can't put food on the table that way. So, judging by what he's saying there, it sounds like they did put him through quite a difficult period in his life, as I've alluded to earlier. It sounds like being deplatformed was a major pushback on his livelihood, his ability to feed himself, and other such things. And going back and just sort of trying to pathetically dunk on him years after the fact, years after they've already taken away that part of his life, seems a bit cruel and a bit weird to me personally, but that just kind of expresses that's just the left in a nutshell, really, isn't it? Reasonably speaking, given that he is somebody who was abused as a child, especially by an institution like the Catholic Church, reasonably the left, if they were to stick to their principles, should be on his side. But because of the fact that they see him as a member of the out-group, a member of the enemy, then they would never extend that kind of charity to him. He's now launching his own conversion therapies venture in Florida, which was recently the subject of protests by students at Penn State University. He told the New York Post in March, "This clinic has been the easiest thing to raise money for that I've ever done. There is an enormous demand for this among people who believe they've been led astray by," it sounds silly to call it this, but the gay establishment. And I mean, that's obviously what they're actually so salty about, that he's decided to open a conversion therapy clinic. But as far as I can tell, there's no coercion.
Well, I will say one thing about Milo Yiannopolous. It's that he always, I think he wakes up in the morning and he manages to find the most controversial thing that he can do that day.
Oh, absolutely.
Which makes him very amusing to follow. But
yeah, I'm not as familiar with him, but it seems like that this is one of the reasons that they are so angry with him. But once again, it doesn't seem that there's any coercion going into this. No. This is not the same as the old-fashioned Christian conservative conversion therapies that they used to force on people when they were children. This seems to be a purely opt-in voluntary thing. And if people want to do that, then that is absolutely
well,
their
in a
right
free
to
country,
do so.
You would expect them to be able to subscribe to that if that's
exactly
what they want. I believe the madness of crowds actually begins at such a venue.
Yes, there was a cinema viewing of a documentary about men who had been gay and decided to be straight again. And as with anything regarding that, once again, his explanation that people view that kind of thing as a regression, a lying to yourself. There were protests that tried to get it taken out of a number of venues.
Yes, but I also understand from that the attendants of that event were concerned that in Britain, even voluntary gay conversion therapy is banned. I believe that's the case.
I think they are in the process of banning it, but
right.
I think that in the process of doing so, they are also looking to ban what could be considered another form of conversion therapy, which are therapies for positive transitioning for minors, which I would absolutely consider to be a form of conversion therapy when some minors are too young to be able to really make those decisions, especially such far-ranging, lifelong decisions. So it's kind of backfired straight in their face in the UK. But, I mean, in the US, if consenting gay adults want to go and try and be converted to being a straight person, whether that be for their own personal reasons or whether it be they want to start their own family and have biological children or something like that, then if they want to give it a try, that's their business, I suppose. It's the same sort of argument that you could have used back in the 80s and 90s for why gay people should be allowed to just live their lives. It's their business, you know? Similarly, there's another gay news site as well, Queerty, that has something to say on it. Sodomy-free Milo Yiannopolous is offering Pray the Gay Away services on college campuses now. They go through a lot of the same information. Ex-gay activist Milo Yiannopolous is taking his side to show Penn State next week for a Pray the Gay Away ceremony, which I'm sure is absolutely purely voluntary in attendance. The event, scheduled for November 3rd, is being hosted by the student hate group Uncensored America, which was created last year to empower young Americans to fight for free speech in order to make American culture free and fun again. Sounds dreadfully hateful, doesn't it? According to the events page, the ex-gay global political sensation will talk about everything from free speech to conversion therapy to hairstyle. Tickets range from $15 to $55. Once again, talking about hairstyles, not the straightest thing a man can do.
I think Milo would have to pay me to listen to him on hairstyles.
Exactly, but if people want to spend their money on that, then go for it, I suppose. You can skip over as well to the next thing. We've got this person here filming Milo at some event that was being held, where he's talking to a very large crowd, and they're saying, it appears Yiannopolous cut his hair off mid-event and dyed it black. This crowd is all about it, whatever happened. I think it appears to me that this might be portraying it in a negative light, as far as I can tell. But as far as I can tell, looking from the footage, Milo is speaking on a very large stage to a decent amount of people who all seem to be very into what he's talking about. So for all intents and purposes, he seems to have landed on his feet with everything that's happened. He seems to be doing quite well for himself, and, you know, it would only be within those Christian Catholic circles that he would be well known if it weren't for lots of weirdo leftists online going, look at Milo Yiannopolous, what is he doing? And why are you so obsessed with him? Good God. We move along as well. He's put up a status recently of someone trying to call him out in some way, where he's like, for F's sake, this is literally my dream job. So once again, just him affirming again that he's actually, you know, quite happy with his position in life at the moment. And whether or not, you know, whatever my personal feelings are on him going from being gay to being straight or whatever, if he's happy with it, then
sure,
fair play to him. And then we can just move along to see what he's been up to recently. I believe that this is what the big event that he was part of is. So you can see here the National Catholic Reporter talks about as Catholic bishops gather, so do protesters on the right and left. So this article just goes into a little bit of what he was involved with there. So protests are common at gatherings of the US Conference of Catholic Bishops, which often touch on national politics or attract heavy media scrutiny, such as during the height of the Catholic sex abuse crisis. But this year's annual fall, the US Bishops Gathering in Baltimore, convened on November 15th to 18th, so they're still going on today, is set to host at least two unusually visible demonstrations that showcase the increasingly broad spectrum of American Catholic thought. So they explain the first protest, which is, as you would expect, Democrats and other such people on the left, and they go on a second protest planned by the planned prayer rally by Church Militant, a controversial Catholic, known for espousing incendiary rhetoric that is sometimes condemned by critics as inflammatory, racist, and homophobic, has been particularly fraught. The event, which organisers say is designed to express a range of grievances with US bishops, is slated to occur November 16th, so 2 days ago now, in a pavilion that sits alongside the Baltimore waterfront Marriott, the hotel hosting the U.S. Bishops' Conference. Church Militant, which is based in Detroit and has been rebuked by leaders of the local some kind of Catholic term, which I don't know how to say out loud, organised similar protests outside the Marriott during past US bishops' meetings, but this year's effort has drawn additional attention for its speaker lineup, particularly the inclusion of Milo Yiannopolous, a far-right agitator, and Steve Bannon, one-time advisor to former President Donald Trump. A spokesperson for the Church Militant told regional news service that the rally, known as Enough is Enough, is meant to provide a venue and voice for hundreds of thousands of victims of the bishop's physical abuse. So it doesn't sound like a particularly far-right cause, or attached to any particular section of the political aisle. It seems like people being able to go out and speak their grievances for an abuse scandal that was big news back in the day, and something that you would especially expect the typically secular anti-theist left to be able to come out in full support of. But no, It's Milo Yiannopolous, so we don't like it. According to the Associated Press, Yiannopolous testified that he wanted to speak at the event because he is a survivor of sexual abuse by a priest and wants to encourage others to confront the enablers and abusers. So this is why I think there's no truth in Yiannopolous supporting paedophilia or anything like that. He may have made some comments back in the day to cope with it or to make light of it, but it seems that in recent years or recent months, he has come around and been and just accepted that what he experienced was abuse, and now he's openly talking about it and openly trying to bring attention to people that they can talk about it as well, and as he said, confront their enablers and abusers, which sounds like a sort of like thing that could be Me Too adjacent almost, that sort of rhetoric and language using there. But once again, because Milo is the enemy, the left cannot support it, but at the same time they just can't stop talking about him for whatever reason. So listen, members of the left, if you want Milo Yiannopolous to go away, just ignore him. If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast Lotus Eaters, you can catch us live 1 PM UK time on our website, and if you'd like more from us, you can also subscribe to find some of our premium content.
Yeah, we actually have absolutely loads on there now because we're over a year old at this point, so we've got a massive library of content that you can't find anywhere else, such as our regular series, which are Contemplations and Epochs. Contemplations, we have philosophical and scientific discussions, and in Epochs, we have long, in-depth conversations about things that happen in history. This one we did recently about the Nika riots, the absolutely brutal Nika riots in Constantinople. I really enjoyed doing myself, but we also have access to, we also have loads of expert articles from people who know what they're talking about, such as this one talking about the misnomer of postmodern neo-Marxism. You may well remember Jordan Peterson getting castigated by left-wing activists for using the phrase. Well, it is a bit of a misnomer, but Thomas happens to be an expert in this subject, and so he takes you through it. And as you can see, there is a silver and gold tier member audio track that goes along with it. So if you don't want to have to read it, you can just listen to it instead. But we also have a bunch of premium podcasts that we can't really host on YouTube because of editorial guidelines, shall we say, such as Harry doing this excellent one, What Happened to the January 6th Rioters, and another one, in fact, that Harry and myself did about a whistleblower from a German public broadcaster talking about the COVID coverage and the particularly engineered narrative in which they can't talk about certain things. And so this leaves a bunch of questions up in the air, and we explore that. Again, editorial guidelines mean we can't really host that elsewhere. We also have a bunch of really excellent interviews. I did one recently with a chap called Philip Tanzer. He's if you're a men's rights activist, you may have heard of him because he comes out of that space, but he's also an ex-gay porn star who's turned conservative activist who has some very interesting opinions.
Very interesting trajectory to take.
Yeah, it's the sort of person you're probably not going to meet in your regular life, but he's a fascinating guy. He's a really nice chap. And also follow us on alternative media because, of course, we want to break the stranglehold of Silicon Valley over everything that we do. And this means that follow us on platforms like Getter, where you can follow Lotus_com to get all the latest updates from us. And also, we are speaking, or I am speaking, at a conference hosted by Getter at the London O2, the Indigo section of the London O2 on December the 8th. I'll be speaking there as it's part of the Counterculture conference, where we're talking about why what is happening to the West is happening and what we can do about it. So part of that is following us on Getter and coming and see us, and of course, subscribe because that keeps everything running.